Hello, and welcome to the RLAS webinar series, LGBTQ+101. This webinar is part of the research study, Implementing School Nursing Strategies to Reduce LGBTQ Adolescent Suicide, or RLAS. The study is funded by the Eunice Kennedy Shriver National Institute of Child Health and Human Development. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Jen Jefferson, and I'm one of the instructional coaches for the RLAS project. I'm also the founder of Prevention at Play, and my areas of specialty include gender and sexuality, bullying, suicide prevention, team building, project management, grant writing, and curriculum development. I'm also a provider of experiential activities and workshops tailored to youth, educators, school administrators, and staff, and especially LGBTQ+ populations. In this webinar, we're going to give you an overview of what it's like for an LGBTQ+ young person. LGBTQ+ stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, and etc. So first, after watching this webinar, you'll be able to identify issues that LGBTQ+ youth face. You'll be able to list tangible ways that adults can engage in acts of allyship to LGBTQ+ youth. You'll be able to identify areas of empathy towards LGBTQ+ youth. And you'll be able to name resources to provide to LGBTQ+ youth in need. We're going to begin with an educational video called I Am Me, Understanding the Intersections of Gender, Sexuality, and Identity. It's a 45-minute video, and it was actually recently produced by the Center of Excellence for Children's Behavioral Health and PollTogether.org out of the Children, Youth, and Family Services Department of the state of New Mexico. So this film was created because many providers, much like yourself, were realizing how at-risk young LGBTQ+ youth were, and they really wanted to be able to provide the best possible services for them and support them in the ways that they need. However, many folks don't really know the best way to do that. And so we created a video through CYFD that would really help folks, whether you're a school person, whether you're a nurse, whether you work in probation, really any line of work, or really any person that has a young person in their life, would be able to watch this video at any time and then be able to better support the young folks in their lives. One of the great things about this film is that it's free and it's online. The website's at the top of your screen. And so if you'd like to share this video with other folks, if you'd like to go back and watch it again, feel free. There's also some other educational materials on that website. And after the video, I will actually be reviewing some of those resource guides that are available. So with that, please enjoy the film. And again, it's about 45 minutes long, and then I'll continue with some review afterwards. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed the film, I Am Me, Understanding the Intersections of Gender, Sexuality, and Identity. So first, I want to share with you some of the most recent data that we have on LGB students in the state of New Mexico. So please note for all the following slides that the statistics only cover lesbian, gay, and bisexual students. In the state of New Mexico, we don't currently yet collect and record data on transgender students through the Youth Risk and Resiliency Survey, which is the YRRS survey. So first, let's start with the experience of LGB students in school around bullying. So as you see, the green here, this lime green, represents the LGB students. And then the blue represents the straight or heterosexual students. Now you'll notice for each one of these categories, missing school, being bullied, and then specifically being electronically bullied, that the experience of LGB students is much greater than the experience of straight students. And that's true across the board. And we see that across the nation too, that most LGB students report being bullied at least 2 times more than straight students. And if you see, many of these numbers are about twice as much. So now we'll go over to kind of the mental health of LGB students. Again, this is from the New Mexico YRS in 2015. And if we look at the experience of the LGB students, it in many cases is almost or at least twice as high as the straight students. So if we look at LGB students, they're a little bit more than twice. They report almost twice as much feeling sad and depressed. They report more than twice as much, almost 3 times as much, 4 times as much rather, as having the idea of attempting suicide. And then if we look at those who have seriously considered suicide, That number is 42.5% for LGBT students and 13.1% for straight students. We do find across the nation that LGBT students report attempting or seriously considering suicide, rather, 4 times higher than straight students. So our numbers here in New Mexico really parallel our national numbers. If we move on to substance use, here we cover alcohol, binge drinking, and marijuana. And as you can see, LGBT students face these issues significantly more than our straight students as well. Now, these numbers are pretty high for young folks in general in New Mexico, but our LGBT students are experiencing them even more than our straight students. And then continuing on with substance use, if we look at some of the harder drugs, cocaine, heroin, meth, painkillers, as you can see, there's a lot of green on your screen. And that means that LGBT students are very significantly experiencing these more than straight students. So just circling back to the film, let me cover some of the terminology. So the film covered this and gave some nice little icons to help you remember. So these 3 things, gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation, are all very different things. And it's important to remember that they are not the same. Gender identity is how someone knows who they are, how they identify. They may or may not choose to show that to the world. There are folks that are not able to live out and have their gender expression match their gender identity. Sometimes for young folks, their parents don't know. It doesn't feel safe at school. For adults, sometimes they can't come out of their job. So do note that gender identity and gender expression are slightly different. And both of those are very different than sexual orientation. And again, sexual orientation is who you're romantically or sexually attracted to. So a word about misgendering. So I found this little helpful cartoon. It floats around the internet regularly. And the point of this cartoon is that when you accidentally misgender someone, it's important to not turn it around and make it all about yourself and the mistake you made. The best thing to do is just correct it and move on. So here's a little cartoon about what not to do. And then here's what to do. Just simply correct it, then keep going with your story. Sometimes it can feel hard to correct yourself in the middle when you're talking because you don't want to draw attention, but the person who was misgendered will absolutely notice. And so it's important for you to take the time to correct and properly gender them for 2 reasons. One, you're going to send a message to that person that you respect and affirm their identity. And the other thing is that you're going to send the message to the other folks you're talking to that you respect and affirm their identity and help support that person being called what they want to be called. So a companion to the I Am Me film is this LGBTQ+ resource guide. This is available free and online, and again, please feel free to share with whomever you like. It's around 36 pages, and I'm going to walk you through some of the resources in there because the resource guide goes into much more detail on several different topics. It'll have those definitions written down. It'll give you the definitions of different sexual orientations, and it really, things that you forget or things that you want to go back and reference, it can help you with that. And there's also some more detailed reading that I'll show you the list of what is available there, that if you want to explore further in a specific topic area, that you would definitely be able to do that. So let's begin with the beginning of the resource guide, which is all about resources. So the first one is about helplines. Then we go into our local organizations, some national organizations, and then there's a section on Know Your Rights to help young people know what rights they do have in schools. So here are some of the helplines that can support LGBTQ+ youth. There's a few specific to LGBTQ folks, and one of them, Trevor Project, is actually for LGBTQ+ youth only, 24 and under. There's also the Trans Lifeline that supports folks who identify as trans. There's the GLBT National Help Center. We have 2 local New Mexico crisis lines, the Agora Crisis Center and the New Mexico Crisis and Access Line. And then there's also the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which often links to our local call centers. Something that's important to know about these helplines is that they used to be called hotlines, but now we call them helplines. And someone doesn't have to be in absolute crisis. They don't have to wait until they are having strong suicidal ideation thoughts to call. They can actually call any of these numbers if they're just struggling. If they're struggling with family accepting them or coming out to their family or being accepted, or they just go through a breakup and are having a hard time, all of these helplines are available for folks to check in with. And many of them have different options, whether it's a chat line, like an online chat or an instant messaging, or you can call on the phone. So there's lots of different ways for folks to get the support they need through these helplines. This will also be available as a handout as part of this webinar that you can actually just print out and put up on your wall so that other folks can see it. So I recommend doing that. And of course, the resource guide will be available both online as well as a handout. So the next section of the resource guide dives into the experiences of LGBTQ+ youth. So it talks about the challenges and has all those stats, covers some of that terminology. It reviews all those acts of allyship that the young folks suggested. There's a section on how to make your office or organization more welcoming. It talks about the gender pronouns and how to explain that to other folks. And then just some additional suggestions on how you can use overall just more gender inclusive language. Section 3 is kind of that further reading section. So there are some pages that actually cover what intersectionality is and school pushout microaggressions, Indigenous LGBTQ folks or Two-Spirit, undocumented LGBTQ+ folks, and disability justice folks are covered in there. And then there's a section that actually just lists different website links where you can read different reports and read more data on different specific subsets of LGBTQ+ youth, like model policies in schools or how to work with LGBTQ+ youth in a detention facility. So there's a lot more detail there that folks can explore if that fits their needs. And as I was saying, the online resources, here's kind of a list of some of them, especially the bullying, harassment, and transgender student policies. There's a lot in our country changing around that right now, so that's a good place to kind of stay up to date. It also talks about mental and medical health, allyship, Indigenous Two-Spirit, disability advocacy, all those things. And then these are those ways to participate in acts of allyship. And these are covered in the video, and it's a great reminder of the things that we can do in our day-to-day lives to help LGBTQ people in general, but also specifically the students that we serve, to feel more inclusive, feel more welcome, and know that you're someone who supports them and cares about them. So stop all derogatory comments. Young people say a lot of things that are unkind to one another, and it's important to stop those, period. And it's especially important to stop those when they're targeted at LGBTQ+ young folks. Same goes with interrupting bullying and harassment and standing up and defending those LGBTQ+ youth so that other folks see that. It's critical to use correct names and pronouns. And the great thing is if you don't know, it's okay to just ask. And just ask them what their gender pronoun is and what they want you to call them. As always, it's important to listen to youth and to take them seriously. In so many areas of their lives, their opinions and knowledge is discounted. It's important to take them seriously. Whenever you can use non-assumptive language, it's so much better. It's better for all of our students when we use that non-assumptive, neutral language. It's inclusive of everyone. Any LGBTQ materials and resources that you can display sends a different kind of message to both the folks who identify as LGBTQ+, as well as the other students, that you're supportive and you're an ally. Asking questions is really important, but also using some of those online resources or Google to educate yourself is also critical. And as said in the film, one of our favorite sayings is that ally is a verb, not a noun. It's something we need to continue to engage in every day, is participating in these acts of allyship. And that's how we really can make a difference in our school climate and our culture and in the life of an LGBTQ+ young person. So with that, I would like to thank our school nurse reviewers who have given guidance and input on this webinar. And I also want to put my contact info up here. If you have any further questions, if there's anything you want clarification on or would like me to explain or would like support, just remember that myself as well as your other instructional coaches are always here. Feel free to contact me via cell or my email, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.